My name is Robert Blake. Bobby to my friends. Which, by the way, I have very few. I just finished 5 years in the Marine Corps. 3 combat tours as an infantryman. You read that right, 5 years and 3 of them spent dodging bullets. Hard to believe I came home without a scratch, not even a skinned knee. Bulletproof is what they called me. Well, maybe I was physically, but mentally that's a different story. I was diagnosed with anger issues caused by PTSD. That is the reason I am living with my grandmother out on the farm. Just trying to get over some things, but having a hard time fitting back into society. Even my family, at least my cousins, can't understand. Take, for instance, 2 weeks ago. I am at a little family get-together at my uncle's house. There were 4 cousins, all with their dates. Me? No, I have not met anyone yet. There was beer and loud music. 2 of my cousins are in the Navy and had just gotten back off a cruise to the Med, guarding the southern coast of NATO. Wow. To hear them tell it, they had saved the country from an invasion. By who? The fucking French? Or maybe those ass-loving Greeks. They acted like they had just come back from the war. Maybe it was the 5 beers I had consumed, or maybe it was just that I was tired of listening to guys talk about how hard they had it, standing watch when it was cold or hot, or at night. Well, I got angry and told them what I thought about their great act of patriotism. Then one of the girlfriends asked what I had done for my country. The silence was deafening. 5 years in the Marine Corps, 3 tours in Vietnam as an infantryman. I've killed better men than these 2 with my bare hands. I've held my buddies while a Navy corpsman tried to plug holes in their bodies to no avail. I've helped put those same friends in body bags, loaded them into a helicopter, and walked away. See, I told you I have issues. There were lots more I wanted to say, but why waste my breath? These kids would never understand. I got in my truck and left. Today finds me standing in front of the new Walmart. Grandma needed some new shoes, so I brought her here. While she is inside, I am smoking my 3rd cigarette. Of course, I am watching my surroundings. A habit I will never get over. My eyes pick up a couple of arguments between 2 cars. I am not going to get involved, I tell myself. Their voices get louder. I am not going to say anything, I promise myself again. Then she screamed as he hit her. She is on the ground and he is slapping her face and screaming. Bitch, you will do as I say or. His foot was drawing back to kick her as I got there. I spun him around and told him not to touch her again. Who the fuck are you to tell me what I can do to my fiancé? The girl looks to be about 18, maybe 20 years old at most. She is holding her face and crying. I reach down to offer her my hand and she is about to take it when he screams, "Touch my girl and I'll kill you." A funny thought went through my head when he said that. I wondered how many guys in the last 5 years had thought the same thing. Challenge accepted. I grabbed her hand and pulled her to her feet. I hear him open the door to his truck and the girl screams. He's got a knife. I look around and see him standing there with this knife that looks like something out of a Hollywood horror film. It is big with a curved blade and the top is serrated. There is no blood groove like on the K-bar I trained with and carried for 5 years. I almost laughed, but I said, "Put the knife down and get in your truck and drive off. That way you will not have to spend the night in the hospital." Now this idiot is crouching over and holding the knife out in front of him. He starts trading it back and forth from his right hand to his left hand. "I'm going to crave you up, asshole." I do laugh at that. He looks pissed and lunges at me. I grab his forearm and his wrist and bend it backward. The loud snap is his arm breaking at the elbow. The knife falls to the pavement. He is on his knees holding his useless arm. It will never be the same again. He is screaming to wake the dead, so to shut him up I kick him under the chin so hard I know his jaw breaks in a couple of places. He is on his back looking up at the sky. I figure he is probably wondering exactly when it was that his day turned to shit. I lean down right in his face and say, "Now listen up, asshole. My name is Robert Blake. If I ever see you again, I will put you in the ground. Do you understand?" His eyes are full of fear and he nods his head. I looked over at the girl and said, "You need to get your future husband to the hospital." I turned to walk away. He isn't my future husband. He is just an old boyfriend who thinks he owns me. He can lay there until he rots for all I care. About that time, we heard the police cars. The girl says, "You better stick around. Daddy will want a statement from you." "Daddy?" I asked. "He's the sheriff." Well, to make a long story short, I'll just say that Daddy did want a statement. Then he offered me a job. I turned him down. Sue, the girl, was starting her junior year at State and she went back to school. No, we never went out and there was nothing more than a thank you offered. I saw her around town sometimes over the next few years, but we just exchanged hellos, nothing more. She was usually with another guy, which I took to be her real fiancé. Let's skip ahead 7 years. I am still living on the family farm. Grandma passed 4 years ago. I have been married 3 years to a really sweet girl I met up in Memphis. We are planning on starting a family soon since my chicken business has really taken off. Let's talk about that for a minute. I went to a meeting at the county agent's office a few years back. The speech was about raising chickens for the new plant a couple of counties over. I decided I could do that on our small farm. We only had 40 acres, but it was on a good road and mostly flat land. I started with one house that could accommodate 20,000 chicks. Today I have 5 houses and raise over 100,000 chicks at a time. I have done very well for a man with anger issues. But all that changed 2 days ago. I was at a seminar over in Arkansas. My wife did not come with me. She had things she needed to do. The first 2 days were informative, but the last day was going to be a couple of speeches that I had heard last year, so I decided to surprise my wife by driving home a day early. The room was paid for another day, so I just left. It was me that was surprised. When I turned onto my road, I saw a strange car parked behind my house. What the hell is this? I cut the engine and coasted up in front of the house. There was no mistaking the noises coming from my bedroom when I entered the house. My wife's voice was unmistakable. She was raised up north and had what the locals called a Yankee accent. I was pissed. How could she? We are planning on starting a family. The more I listened to her cries of passion and begging this guy, whoever he is, to not stop and do it harder, my anger came back. I keep a .45 Colt automatic in my office here in the house. There is a loaded 16-gauge pump shotgun in the corner on my side of the bed. The lights were off and the bedroom door was open. I could not tell who was fucking her in the dark, but when I turned the lights on, they both looked at me. It was my cousin, home from the Navy. She screamed and started to say something. I never gave her a chance. That hollow point round hit her on the bridge of her nose. He started to get up screaming. Wait, it was her. I imagine he was going to say it was her fault. I did not care. My next shot hit him behind the ear as he turned to grab the shotgun. I went into the kitchen. Killing is thirsty work. I found 2 half-empty beer bottles on the table. Some party. I got a beer and sat down and thought about what I needed to do. Option number 1. Call the sheriff and confess. Then spend the next 25 years in prison. Fuck no. Option number 2. Get busy, clean everything up, bury the bodies and the car, then get back to Little Rock, Arkansas, where the conference was going on. I'll take my chances with option number 2. I had 10 hours to get everything done and get back to the seminar. I hauled the bodies out to his car, along with the bloody sheets. I have a backhoe and I know how to operate it. I started it up and dug a hole. Not just any hole, anywhere. I dug it where I was planning on building my next chicken house. I went in and showered. I was back in my hotel room in time for the breakfast meeting. No questions asked. I had a meeting with the representatives from the chicken plant. I explained to them how I was expanding my operation by adding another chicken house. I also joked about getting home in time to take my wife to a new steakhouse in town. At lunch, I sat with a couple of friends and commented about how this time next year I planned on being a father. They made a few jokes about it, then I left for home. When I got home, I started calling around to ask if anyone had seen my wife, Linda. Of course, no one had. My last call was to Roy's mom. Aunt Brenda, have you seen or heard from Linda in the last few days? No, I have not. Is she not home? No, when I got back from the conference, she was gone and I can't seem to locate her. That's strange. You think you should call the sheriff? I'm sure she will turn up. She probably just went to Memphis to shop and time got away from her. She likes to go shopping in Memphis about once a week. I guess that's where she is. By the way, how is Roy? Oh, Roy is all mixed up these days. You know he was on recruiting duty in Memphis? Well, he met a girl and he really fell for her. The problem is his recruiting duty is over, and he is going to have to go to the West Coast to report to a ship that is going on a one-year cruise around the world. He is really upset about leaving his girl. He started a 2-week leave a couple of days ago. I think he wants to spend as much time with her as he can before he leaves. I told her to wish him luck from me and got off the phone. Roy was going to get to spend eternity with his girl under a pile of chicken shit. Monday morning, I called the sheriff and reported Linda missing. He told me to stop by his office and fill out a missing person form. I went to town and filled it out, then talked to him. Robert, sometimes things happen in a marriage, and one person just needs some time. Know what I mean? Maybe. Linda was a little nervous about us starting a family. Maybe she just wanted to get away and think about being a mother for a few days without me bothering her. I bet that's it. If she's not back by the end of the week, give me a call and I'll start an investigation. Friday I called and told him I still had not heard from her. He drove out with a detective from the State Bureau of Investigation. I was supervising the pouring of the concrete floor of my new chicken house. After introductions and a brief explanation of what I knew, the detective asked if he could inspect the house. I told him I was busy, but my housekeeper was there. The sheriff knows her. Just tell her I said it was okay for them to look around. Lola May. I've worked for Bobby's family for over 40 years as the housekeeper. I even do some cooking when needed. I have taken care of Bobby his whole life. I knew something was wrong when that fat, lazy wife of his told me I could take the rest of the week off after Robert left for that conference. She even paid me for my days off. When I came back the next Monday, I was sure something had happened. You see, the sheets on the bed were changed, and the sheets I had put on last Friday were missing. Gone, nowhere to be found. Then I noticed a few drops of what looked like blood on the mattress. I poured bleach on them to get them out. Then I flipped the mattress. I made sure to mop the floors with lots of pine sol. I was not really surprised when the sheriff and that detective came up to the house and wanted to look around. After they finished, they asked me to come in the living room and talk to them. Lola May, it seems that Linda has gone missing. Do you know anything about that? She probably runs off with that boyfriend of hers. A couple of suitcases are missing along with some of her clothes and things, you know, like makeup and her hair dryer. First, I heard about her having a boyfriend. Well, don't tell Bobby, I ain't for sure. But I do have my suspicions. Know what I mean? I have been doing the laundry in this house for years, so I notice things. Know what I mean? Things like what? Asked the detective. Things like on the days she goes to Memphis to shop and her clothes are in the hamper the next day, smelling like a man's cologne. Or her panties being all crusted up. Know what I mean? But I never told Bobby cause I got no proof, just suspects. We noticed a certain smell in the house this morning. What is that? Fine soul. I mop the floors every morning with lots of it. If not, the house would smell like chicken shit. I guess they did, cause they left after thanking me and I ain't never talked to them again. And that's good, cause if happened what I think happened, it's best not to talk about it too much. Sheriff Simmons in the car with the detective on the way back to town. So what do you think happened? The husband killed her. It's always the husband. I doubt that in this case. I checked his alibi and he checked out. He was in Little Rock until Friday night. Then he called around trying to find her. When I advised him to wait on filing a report, he waited, then came in and filed. Hell, they were planning on starting a family. At least he was. And I might have a line on that boyfriend Lola May was talking about. The Naval Investigative Service is looking for a cousin of his that has disappeared. It seems his mother says he had fallen in love with some girl and did not want to go on a one-year cruise around the world. I'm betting the girl is Linda and they have run off together. That's what I am going to tell Bobby. I think all these suspects add up to a pretty good circumstantial case of a runaway wife. You know, Sheriff, you are probably right. I imagine she got tired of smelling chicken shit all day and she found a way out. Let's just let the Navy find them hiding out in Miami or Dallas and us not waste our time or budgets looking for them. I'm with you. I have enough problems with these bikers planting marijuana all over the county. I'll tell Bobby tomorrow. On to the perspective of Robert. The sheriff called me the next day and told me they thought she run off with Roy. He advised me to see an attorney. He recommended his daughter, who had finished law school and had opened an office in town practicing family law. I was real busy with building the new chicken house and with my other chickens, so it was a month before I got to Sue's law office. From the perspective of Linda. I know I'm dead, but I want to tell my side of the story. I think this is a good time. I was born and raised in New York City, Brooklyn to be exact. That's where I got my Yankee accent. In my senior year in high school, my dad, who worked for Federal Express, got transferred to the main office in Memphis. Culture shook. Mom could not take it and moved back to the city. We did not know it at the time, but she had breast cancer. She died about 6 months before I married Bobby. Dad was killed in a traffic accident a year before I died. Now a little about me. I am stout, not fat, but at 5 foot 4 inches and 145 pounds. I was never going to be a runway model, and for those of you who are wondering about it, no, I am not a virgin. Hey, it's 1976, for God's sake. How many 19-year-old virgins are there? Dad would not let me lay around the apartment all day, so I got a part-time job waitressing. That's where I met Bobby. He came in late one night on his way home and sat in my section. He ordered a cup of coffee and lit a cigarette. Smoking was permitted back then. He looked nervous, so I took a break and sat with him. He got to talking and told me about his anger issues caused by the war. I held his hand and he seemed to calm down. He has the softest blue eyes. We talked until my manager demanded I get back to work or he was going to fire me. Bobby understood and I let go of my hand. He asked me out for the next night. I had to work, shit. But I was off 2 nights later and he picked me up in his truck. I had never been in a pickup truck in my life. This was new, fun, and exciting. We had a whirlwind romance. The first time we made love was so good. The second time we were at his house for the weekend and I loved it. Again, the first time I ever spent the night outside of a city. Country living. I love it. We were married 4 months after our first date. Now it is 2.5 years later. Country living is not so great for this city girl. Do you know there is no pizza delivery out here? And to get to a mall, it is an hour drive. It was Christmas time and we were invited to one of his aunts for a party. Actually more of a family reunion. One of his cousins was home from the Navy. Bobby and this cousin, Roy, did not seem to be real friendly, but I blew it off. It was something about Navy men and Marines, I think. Anyway, I enjoyed talking to Roy. He had been all over the world and visited cities like Rome, Venice, Paris, and London. I was enthralled just listening to him. He told me he was on recruiting duty in Memphis, and if I could get away, he would take me to lunch, and we could talk some more. I decided not to tell Bobby about this. It was the first week of January, and it was cold. Bobby and his crew were cleaning out one of the chicken houses, and the smell of shit was in the air. I was restless, and I decided to go to Memphis, so I called Roy. Maybe lunch and some talk would get me in a better mood, right? Our maid, Lola May, just smirks when I tell her to make fried chicken before she leaves. Bobby likes her fried chicken better than mine anyway. I don't think she likes me very much. She is like a mother-in-law, always critiquing what I do. On the way, I called Roy from a payphone, and we decided to meet at a little cafe. He asked if Bobby knew I was having lunch with him. Of course not. I asked about his girlfriend. She was engaged to another when he came back after his last cruise. He talked a little about his job in the Navy. It was very important sounding. Then he wanted to know if I would like to see his apartment. Sure. Now, Roy was not a great lover, nor did he have a big cock. This was just fun. Something to get me off the farm and away from that smell. It became a once-a-week thing for me. I still loved Bobby and I want to have his kids. I just needed a break from being bored to death out on the farm. Lola May did all the housework and most of the cooking. I sat on my ass watching soap operas all day. But every week I went to Memphis and Roy told me stories and then fucked me. The stories were better than the fucking actually, but I enjoyed it. Then in May, Roy told me he was leaving for another cruise. He was going to miss me. I told him I would miss him also. Not quite the truth. I was tired of this sneaking around. Bobby and I had decided to start a family, so as soon as Roy left I was going off the pill and getting pregnant, but I made one big mistake. I told Roy that Bobby was going out of town for a week. Roy was leaving in a few days, so I invited him out to the farm. I gave Lola May the week off with pay, and Roy showed up about 3 hours later. The first 2 nights were okay, I guess. I did not get the same thrill out of making love to Roy in Bobby's bed that Roy seemed to get. In fact, by the 3rd night, I was glad it was over. I would fuck him tonight, then in the morning I would make him breakfast and he would be gone. We were in bed fucking in the missionary position. Roy seemed to be having a hard time getting off, so I started trying to help him. I was saying things like, "Oh yes, right there, don't stop, harder, harder." Then the lights came on. I screamed. I saw the look in Bobby's eyes. I knew that look. I opened my mouth to start to say, "I love you." But suddenly everything went dark. I never felt a thing. Now I am forever buried under that chicken shit that I so much despised. On to the perspective of Robert. Like I said, it was a month before I got around to going to see Sue, the sheriff's daughter and now an attorney. I told her my story. I started when I joined the Marines, the time in combat, and the anger issues. I told her about how I had met Linda and the life we planned together. Then I stopped. This girl has tears in her eyes. My plans of telling her how I came home to find Linda gone went out the window. I was not going to lie to her. "Sue, tell me about this attorney-client privilege thing." She told me how anything I told her would be kept secret if she was my attorney. Then she asked for $1. I handed her a 5. "Now I am officially your attorney," she laughed. I told her what had happened and where I buried the bodies. She is now laughing hysterically. "Did I just fuck up telling you this?" "What's so damn funny?" "The exact same thing happened to me," she answered. "Sue, what the hell are you talking about?" "You remember how you saved me in the parking lot some years ago?" "Of course I remember." Well, I vowed that nobody was ever going to treat me like that again if I could help it. When I turned 21, I got a concealed carry permit. I practice every week and I am always armed. In college, I met a man and fell in love with him. We married just after graduation. Then we started and finished law school together. We opened this practice here in town. Life was wonderful. One day I had depositions in Memphis. They were supposed to last 3 days. We finished up in 2 and I headed home. Imagine my surprise when I opened my door to find my loving husband on my couch fucking a friend of ours from college. I shot them both in a fit of rage. "What did you do?" I asked. The only thing I could think of was to call Daddy. He told me to go to his house and he would take care of everything. About 4 hours later, he and his brother came in and told me I could go home. I was never to mention anything about what I had done. I did have to buy a new couch. Mine was missing. "Does he own a backhoe?" I asked. "No, but his brother, Uncle Tommy, does." Now we both were laughing. We decided to go get some lunch at the city cafe. Over lunch, we talked and I asked her to go out with me that Friday night. We spent a lot of time together while my divorce from Linda for abandonment worked its way through the courts. Finally, I was a free man and we married a month after my divorce was final. I moved into her house in town. She did not like the smell of chicken shit. Lola May? She likes the new house and she is a great-grandmother to our kids. Life is good. Just in case anyone would like to know. I never asked Daddy about Sue's first husband and he never mentions my first wife. One more thing. My father caught me laughing at the way Lola May said something and he said, "Never think that lady is stupid, just because she talks slowly and in her own style of Southern English. This does not mean she thinks slow. She is the smartest person in this house. She proved him right on more than one occasion." And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.